This video is brought to you by AKSIAS.
I am teaching you medieval Indian history. Medieval Indian history. So this module is completely into medieval period. Medieval period. Let's have some introduction about medieval. Let's have some basic understanding of what are the characteristics of medieval. We have divided Indian history into what are they? Just divide ancient into divide, no chapterization. I'm asking you division. How do you divide ancient Indian history into broad branches? Vedic is a chapter, but I divide or I understand ancient Indian history into three broadly, that is pre, proto, early or ancient. Understand? Pre, proto and the remaining part of ancient, that is early to ancient. Why early to ancient and pre and proto? Proto is, what is proto? Because this is the first interaction. I would like to just travel with you in a safe mode by having the seat belt. Understand? Because it's not understanding history just directly going into the chapter itself. That's why just I am bringing you from the Stone Ages to medieval period. If I am asking you what is medieval period, you should be able to tell the basic characteristics of medieval period. Is it not? When I ask you what is the characteristic of medieval period, you will say Rajput kingdoms, then Delhi Sultanate, up to Marathas. It is not the characterization. You are talking about the chapters. Is it not? That is why I started like this. So proto history is where you don't have written evidences. Only the physical evidences are the basis for your understanding what happened in those days. We call it as Stone Ages in layman's terms. Then comes your proto history. We call it as Indus. What is proto? Why it is called as proto? You have the evidence, but you can't understand it. Understand? You have the script, but you can't decipher it. That is where we call it as proto history. I am broadly speaking about the characteristics of different periods. Then comes your early history, starting from Vedic, where you have some written source, some understanding, then come to later Vedic, then come to Mahajanapada to rise of Magad, Mauryan. Then you are flowing into the natural course of history. And we have divided the Indian history into ancient, medieval, modern. What should be the characteristic or what should be the basis for this division? Is it our manmani? Is it our wish? Whatever we think, we will just say this is medieval, or we will divide the whole period and okay, 2000 years or 1800 years or 1947. So 1000 there, 3000, divide equally, 1000 each. Is it the way? There should be some reason. What are the characteristics? Religion. On the basis of religion. So ancient India is what religion? What religion? Is it just Vedic? Then total means 64 or 62 philosophies, but not all religions. You are talking about Buddha. During the time of Buddha, you heard about 62 philosophies, and some are religions. Lokayata is a philosophy, but not a religion. Among the 62 Lokayata or Charvaka is there. Yeah? Right. But did you divide this into three divisions based on this one? No. But broadly, what has happened, I understand why he said religion. In a broad sense, what happened, we call ancient India as Hindu India, medieval India as Muslim India, but you don't call modern India as Christian India. Did you? Then where is the question of religion? If you say Christian India, again there will be people fighting for the power along with British. So Britishers, when they started writing, they did not say that this is Christian period. They said this is British period, so that they will not have any competition with other Christians from Europe. Did you get the point? Come to ancient India. If you say it is Hindu India, it is historically very wrong, because Buddhism is as big, at times it is much bigger than Vedic religion, according to its spread in the people. Is it not? Jainism is also such a huge religion. So you can't take this as the criteria for the division of Indian history. Since I am going to talk about medieval period, I am starting with the characteristic of all these periods. I am not going into ancient now. But why you should call? What is the period and what is the main criteria? Here, remember, this is the principle for anything in period of history. For anything, if you want to talk, your lifestyle is a general term, but your lifestyle depends on the economic things. What do you mean by economy? Simple principle I am talking about. I will not again repeat this. Remember, now actually I am writing the title so that no one will get confused. Medieval history of India. I am talking about how divided into ancient, medieval and modern. The characterization of all these periods depend on the economic aspect. What do you mean by economic aspect? Just not coins, just not these things. Economy should be understood in a broader and much scientific way that I will explain you. Production relations. This is the core area. This is the core concept. Your production relations till ancient period is of one mode. From medieval period, you have switched to something else. In modern period, you have something else. What is this something else? What is that? I gave you the generic term, like paracetamol. Now you tell the brand. Pardon? I said production relations. This is the major aspect which makes you to understand this is the period and this is medieval, this is modern, this is ancient. Industrialization. What is the industrialization here? Of course, you are coming nearer. Producing what? Right. Now I am giving you the names. This is pre-feudal, feudal, colonial. This is much scientific understanding of your Indian history. Is it not? When you talk about modern Indian history, what is the period you are talking about? You are talking about the British period. You are talking from the coming of Europeans. Europeans, they are bringing a new set of understanding that is known as colonialism. Is it not? This colonialism is nothing but the first part of your capitalism. First is mercantile, then industrial. So if you understand this mercantile and industrial, this is what capitalism is. This is not feudalism. Feudalism is a different set of production relation where feudatories or the landlords will have the say, will have the control over the resources of the people. What are the resources? Land. Because this is agrarian. So feudal or feudal period is nothing but the control over the land by feudal forces. You call them in different names, with different names. What do you call? Landlords, jamindars, jagirdars. Who is bigger one? King, king, king to emperor, king, or whatever you call, from that period, that level to a landlord in the local region. This is a feudal system. Don't you have kings in the ancient India? Then why it is not feudal? Why didn't we call it as feudal? Centralized. There are many kingdoms also in ancient India, live empires. When Mauryan declined, there are many kingdoms. When Guptas declined, there are many kingdoms. Is it not? It is not empire or kingdom. But which productive force has the say over it. See, if you recollect ancient India, Gupta period, gradual growth of giving donations to Brahmins, growth of power of feudatories, governors, local rulers, bureaucracy, ownership of land is with them. That is how the emergence of feudal power is gradually happening from Gupta period in a bigger way. But you have the seeds for this donation methods in Shatavahana period itself. Shatavahanas are the first people who gave land grants. Much before even that. Gautamiputra Shatakarni is like who has got a big social media following. If you have more bigger account, you get more name. Much before Gautamiputra Shatakarni, Shatakarni too is also a much bigger man who was Dakshinadipati. Understand? Like that, you have the Shatavahana period, you have the land grant system. Once land grant system is there, you are making the production relations dependent on something else. Remember, in production relations, you have productive forces. If you understand these things, understanding the economy in medieval period will be much more easier. Why these feudals behave like this? Why this Jamindari system? Why this Ikta system? Why they abolish some taxes? Why they institute some taxes? Why they put some people over their heads of the people at places? All these things are dependent on how you control these production relations. So I call them as productive forces. What are the productive forces? Productive forces is the term used for not productive forces, productive or production force. Land, human resources, okay, tools, everything is part of productive forces. These are the forces which produce. The relation between these productive forces, we call it as production relation. Understand? The relation between these productive forces, the relation between the land and the owner and the worker who works on it, land and equipment, this relation is called as production relations. In pre-feudalism, you don't have feudals as the people who have the say over the complete say. It's a gradual ascendancy. So complete say over production relations. But come to medieval period, feudalism has emerged as the economic system of this period. So you can take feudalism is the main characteristic of medieval period. Take down. This is the characterization. Feudalism is the main characteristic. Feudalism is the main characteristic of medieval period. Like any society, we call it as, we characterize a society. Like if you characterize our present Indian society, you call it as a democratic country with all its fallacies, lapses, everything, whatever it is. But you call it as a democratic country, sovereign republic, is it not? Like that, every time has a characteristic. Understand medieval period in these terms. Done? Now coming to a brief introduction to the growth of feudalism so that I can explain the feudals from lords to the economic system of medieval period. So, Shatavahana, I said, that is the beginning of land grants. Gupta period, you have seen the ascendancy or the development of the powers of the bureaucracy or local people, local landlord-like system. But this is becoming, Brahman landlords are all coming because of the Brahmadeya system. Devadeya, Brahmadeya, temples are getting lands, temples are becoming landlords, and control over the temples having with the Brahmins or the people who has the control over. So gradually this is becoming more powerful, and by the time post-Harsha period, this is the cut point in our Indian history, post-Harsha period is the period where we say feudalism has begun. Take down as post-Harsha, means around 640 AD. Post-Harsha is beginning of feudalism in a gradual sense. I am giving you broader sense of understanding of concepts. So I am not going in depth in some things. I'll restrain myself from going into deep. Now I am explaining you two methods of feudalism. This is also very, very interesting, but I am not going to explain in detail. Keep it in mind. You can go through some of the books, like in medieval, if you have Irfan Habib's or Satish Chandra, this concept is well explained. Feudalism has two methods. One is feudalism from above and feudalism from below. Feudalism from above and feudalism from below. Above means the powers or the establishment of feudal power is happening from the higher level. Below means the feudals are growing from the native lands where the centralized power is not being so big. So these feudals are growing from this. This is a general understanding. You can deeply study in a different way. For your general studies, this much is enough to mention it. For if you are having history optionals, that is a different story. So this is another characteristics of feudalism. So now coming to introducing my portion in medieval Indian history. Now you tell the chapterization, which you were talking about ancient. What are the topics we are going to study in medieval period? Pardon? Major. If you miss smaller, I don't mind. Bigger things. For example, in the medieval period, in ancient India, as you have bigger chapters and smaller chapters, in medieval also we have broader things like coming of Islam. Coming of Islam is how Islam is emerging in Arabia, in brief. Then how it is impacting the Indian subcontinent. Remember, I may not use this Indian subcontinent every time. We say it is Indian history. Do you think Indian history means we are talking about the history of just present day India? What is the area? We are talking about the entire Indian subcontinent. Your Indian subcontinent includes India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, restrain there. Bhutan, you don't have much interaction. Why? Even in Indian history, do you have much story about Northeast India? Ancient India you studied. Did you get anything about Northeast India in a bigger way? Now in medieval period, when we talk about Palas or the development in East, as an extension you talk about Northeast India. Why so? Forest, hill tracts, all tribal kingdoms not developed into much bigger political unities. In that sense, so Bhutan is in South Asia, if you call, you can take Bhutan. But in a different sense, we are not going to talk about much Bhutanese, because Bhutanese polity is entirely different, which is much dependent or affiliated to the Chinese history than Indian history. That is why you didn't get Bhutan. Did you get anything about Bhutan? Ashoka went to Nepal. Ashoka didn't go to Bhutan. Sri Lanka, though it is not attached through land, but you have some, because just for Sri Lanka also they don't have many other people. They are stranded in between the sea. Is it not? They don't have, the nearest landmass is again Indian subcontinent. So that attachment is there with Indian subcontinent. Geography and polity is always linked. You can't exclude yourself. You can't do anything without geography. So when I am talking about Indian subcontinent, this is the story of Indian subcontinent. That is where everything comes from. Either it may come from Afghanistan or Pakistan. At times it comes from Central Asia. It comes from Iran, Iraq. Is it not? The continuous landmass is expanding its effect or impact on Indian subcontinent. So you can't exclude all these areas in our study. So now, when you talk about Islam, how Islam is developing and its impact on Indian subcontinent, or for our sake, I am saying Indian history. What is the term they use for Pakistan? Pakistan, supposing this is Pakistan class, Pakistan Civil Service Commission. Okay. What do they call it? Pakistan history. Pakistan history includes Indian history. What is this? Did you get this point? Have you ever thought that what would be the Indo-Pak history is Pakistan history? Even for us, it is true. Bangladesh is also the same thing. So in this way, expand your understanding into Indian subcontinent when you talk about, because many terms come. The first and foremost point when you are into medieval history is for those who are not comfortable with the terms which emerged from Persian language. Till ancient India, those who are from non-Muslim background, you are very, very comfortable. When you come to medieval history, now the terms are with Persian origin or some Arabic origin, then what is this? You can't. Subukta Jinn. What is this Subukta Jinn? You can't understand. Is it not? You write B-A-D-R, Badr. How do you pronounce? So what happens? There is a mind block. So because before entering into medieval history, I am trying to explain you some aspects which we have to overcome. Medieval history, the first chapter or the thing is coming to Islam, coming of Islam, its impact. In this way, the first coming into Sindh, then Ghazni, then Ghori. Okay, you just listen to this, because first you should have a bird's eye view. Then we can go into nitty-gritties. So this is one aspect you are talking about. The second aspect is, at the same time, there is another type of development in Indian subcontinent itself. You call it as Rajput kingdoms. Rajput kingdoms. Rajput kingdoms. Is it not? Simultaneously, you have Rajput kingdoms growing in this land. This is another one. This Rajput kingdoms on one side and Ghaznavids and Ghorid empire on another side. These things are flowing together into medieval Indian history. Then it comes into clash at some point or the other, at one region or the other, and finally what happens? You are getting a bigger empire. You call it as third one, Delhi. How do you pronounce? Sultanate. In English, you are writing it as Sultanate. Sultan. What is the another pronunciation? Sultanate. Okay. Delhi Sultanate or Delhi Sultanate. Then this Delhi Sultanate flows into what? What happens with Delhi Sultanate? It closes with Lodhis and new chapter begins in the name of Mughals. Mughal. Okay. Again, Mughal is a much vast, bigger period. Unification, political unification, much bigger area of Indian subcontinent into Mughal history. Who is the Mughal emperor who has bigger territory compared to all the kings, all the emperors of Akbar? 1/3 mark cut. Because you have answered. Those who didn't answer, they are left. It is Aurangzeb. During Aurangzeb period, you have much bigger territory than any other emperor. Understand? You just imagine. I'm trying to take you into medieval period with such questions. Akbar period, he did not have much say in South. But by the time Aurangzeb period, South India is all into his kitty. Is it not? So whose empire is much vaster? Aurangzeb. Right? So, Mughals, after Aurangzeb, you have later Mughals. Okay. So, this is the period when again you have another important chapter, that is Marathas. Rise of Maratha kingdom. Rise of Maratha kingdom is one important chapter. Exactly when later Mughals are coming, at the same time, see, whenever you have a weak power in the center, definitely it is very, very easy for the other power centers to emerge much stronger, dethroning the original power and come to much bigger place. Marathas, at the time of Aurangzeb, Shivaji is a contemporary. But post Shivaji, again some conflicts. Again by the time of Peshwas, here also the Mughal power completely declined. At this point of time, again Maratha power rose. This Maratha power went into North India and they captured till the Terai region. So this is another important chapter. Exactly during this period, later Mughals and Marathas, another power is coming into Indian history, that is European power. These coming of Europeans, the important four sets of European powers: Portuguese, English. These four European powers and final consolidation of English power. Then you flow into modern history. This is the broad view. But I have left some of the chapters in medieval history which are not coming in the mainstream of main story here. What are the other chapters in medieval history we are going to talk about is Vijayanagara is a major chapter you have to talk about in terms of Indian history for civil services. Vijayanagara. Along with Vijayanagara, before Vijayanagara, there is a bigger power, Kakatiya. Though Kakatiyas are mentioned, generally we don't get much about Kakatiyas, but Vijayanagara is much talked about in civil services. Okay, so focus on Vijayanagara. But for state syllabus, Kakatiyas is bigger topic. For group 1 people, Kakatiyas is one of the important topic, which is a big topic dealt in a different way, right? But here we are going to talk about Vijayanagara, and along with Vijayanagara, we will be discussing about Kakatiya or Hoysala in brief, but not at length. But when you deal about art and architecture or cultural aspect of this period, all these kingdoms, those who miss in terms of polity, may come into line. Like Hoysala, then we have to talk about Hoysala art, then we have to talk about Belur temple, and all those things will come into your study. So this is the broad understanding of what we are going to study in medieval history. And just now, another thing is, it seems Pallava also has to be dealt, but I arranged my scheme of things differently. So tomorrow I'll deal with Pallavas, but I'll proceed as I thought for today's class, right? As I said, the first topic is coming of Islam. It flows into, it will not stop till your Delhi Sultanate is coming into existence. So I would like to take that chapter along with Delhi Sultanate. So first I am focusing on Rajput kingdoms, right?
This video is brought to you by AKSIAS.